I was finding a lot of people I was talking to in the IT areas of my business and friends who work in IT, they were complaining at me incessantly. Why is it that I know why this is important, but other people don't? And so when Ignite New Zealand was happening, I sort of went, well, if my friends want to know about it, then maybe people do slightly more globally as well. Hence, the creation of this talk. Now, I like to do this really informally, so talk to me, ask questions, raise points, heckle, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Mainly because I do it, and it would be bad of me to say, no, you're not allowed to heckle if I don't. So, let's make sure this works. It is a blue screen, and it is supposed to be a blue screen. So, think about this. In your environment, whether it be at work or in an organisation you're a member of, have you recommended a purchase to a manager? Is there anyone in the room that's done that? Excellent. And if you have, did you get it? Did they go, yes, here you go, here's a bucket of cash, go and do it. You're awesome. Okay, we've got at least one nod. Just get out. It's fine, you don't need to be here. Okay, so if you didn't get what you wanted, did you understand why you didn't get what you wanted? Because that's sort of the focus of what we're going to talk about is you know what you need to say, you know why it's important, but how do you then explain that and what information do you need to convince other people of it? And then the final question, when you actually had that conversation, did you feel they understood you? Whether or not you got what you wanted, which, to be honest, you can't always get what you want, did you feel that they actually understood why you were having the conversation? What was important about it? So think about those things. Feel free to give us some examples as we go. So the question then becomes, when you think about that, think about, can you change it? Can you say, okay, they said no, great. They didn't understand what I was trying to say, sure. How can you change that answer? Can you make that answer a yes? Well, unfortunately, I'm going to say, oh, I'm missing the slide. I'm going to say, I can't guarantee that. You're not going to walk out of this room this evening and go, great, tomorrow morning I'm going to walk into my boss's office, I'm going to lay it down for them, and they're going to go, here's $1 million, do what you will. I'm not that good. I'm working on it. Okay, so when you're starting this process, one of the first things you have to think about is who. Who is it that you're talking to? Who is going to be making the decision? Is it your boss? Is it their boss? Is it the CFO? Who in your organisation is responsible for the yes? Because at the end of the day, depending on who that is, will depend on what it is that they care about. Now, I can't see my notes. It's okay, I can remember it, it's fine. So that's always got to be right there up front in your head, who it is. What they care about is going to be different, and I apologise because this slide should have been up a second ago. What do they care about? If it's the CFO, they're going to care about things like profit and loss statements. They're going to care about their liabilities. They're going to care about whether or not they're going to save money. To be fair, most managers you speak to, they're going to care about the bottom line. They're going to say, how is this going to make me money or save me money? If you can answer that question, you're well on your way to getting the yes. Now, when you think about what you want, you're thinking about it in terms of, we have a problem. I have a problem. I come into work every day and I come up against this problem. If we had this widget or this doohickey, that problem wouldn't exist. However, when you think about the conversation with the person that's making the decision, your decision maker, you've got to think about what they care about, but then you've got to think about how what you care about and what they care about fit into the wider context. How do they make the decision? How can you reference things that the organisation is doing to back up your argument? So let's think. You know that you work for Saracen, and give him a bit of a plug there, he's been working at it all night. You work for Saracen and you know you're about to go live with V2, and you know that this thing, this little widget, will improve your ability to respond to customer complaints. It'll give you an ability to fix things quicker. It'll give you an ability to sell things quicker. If you can think about the wider context, what's going on in the business, you're going to be able to use that in your argument. So here's my example. DevOps, because everyone loves DevOps. It's the latest word. Got to love our terminology. So you're sitting there going, oh look, when I do deployments, I'm going to have less risk. i.e. I'm going to be less likely to get screamed at by my manager because I just took the website out. When things do go wrong, you're going to have less complex issues because you're only doing smaller deployments at a time. You're saying, I'm only changing this little widget. So if there's a problem, you go, oh, well, I only have to fix that little widget or how that interconnects to the wider system. And, of course, as a sysadmin, quick server builds. You just go deploy, deploy, deploy. Oh, wait, there's the build. Oh, well, we'll just ignore that. But when you turn that around and you think of that in a business context, they don't care that there's more risk. Well, they do, but only in the context of what's the likelihood and what's the outcome of that risk. So they get to see faster feature delivery. So because there's less risk, because you're deploying smaller amounts of code, they can respond quicker. If someone has a bright idea in marketing to put something into your application, you can do it quicker because you can do it in small iterative approaches. When you look at issues and problems that you're having, and a customer goes, I just logged onto your website and it told me this and that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. When that comes to your developers or to your systems guys to fix, you can do it quicker. The customer's happier. They go, oh wow, that only took you a day to fix and now it's working, I'm really happy. Business cares about that. And less downtime for quicker server builds. If something goes wrong with your server, say in the cloud or in the DevOps world, you just get rid of it. You kick it into the bin, build a new one, you're all fixed. Why? What does that mean? It means your server's not offline for hours while you try and fix whatever's gone wrong with the server. It's down for 5 minutes. So they get more money because this website's available or the application's available, and so people can buy stuff. Everybody loves it when people can buy stuff. So I know that they sound the same, but it's about changing how you're thinking about what it is that you're doing rather than just focusing on your view of the world. Okay, so we've talked about who you need to speak to. Now let's talk about what. What are the sorts of things you need to think about? First one. How many people, I've done this by the way, how many people have gone, oh my God, that's so amazing, and run into your manager's office, well, walked sedately into your manager's office and said, we need this thing, we have to have it, it'll solve all these problems, please get it now. Nobody? Just me? Okay. That's not going to get you what you want because they just don't care as much as you do about this stuff. I know it's gutting, isn't it? So you need to be knowledgeable. That means you don't just need to be knowledgeable about the thing you're recommending. You don't turn around and say, this product's great, we should get it because it's amazing. You say, well, I've actually done a bit of research. I've had a look at the other products that do the same thing in the market. I've compared them. I've looked at what the different functions are. I've compared them to what the business needs. And now I'm making the recommendation. I do things like create requirements spreadsheets. So I actually sit down and say, what is this going to do for this organisation? Let's take the example of one I've done, a new antivirus product. We had one, it was annoying, everybody hated it. So we were looking at a new one. So I sat down and I said, okay, what are the requirements? What does the different parts of the business need? So that is technical, what you care about, what I care about. And then you start talking about functionality. Who else in the business needs to use it? What do they need it to be doing? Support. What sort of support do you need for it? Security, etc. And you can make whatever those requirements are. They may be finance. List it all out. I then have at least 3 vendors generally, because then I've got a good comparison. Compare them all. I grade them because I like numbers. So I grade them up, it gives me a number at the bottom, and if I look at that number and go, yeah, no, that's not right, I then go and look at what I've missed. So let's say, for example, I've got 3 products. Product A is the one that, after doing all the review, I've gone, that's the one we need, that's the one that suits us best. And yet, it was product B that's actually come out with the higher number. It means one of 2 things. I'm kidding myself and I just really want that product. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. Or B, you're missing some sort of fundamental business need that's going to slot in there to raise the number. Don't just look at this and go, oh, I'm just going to ignore those numbers. Look at why. Is it because you're wearing blinkers and you think that product's awesome and we should just use that one? Or is it actually something fundamental that you're missing as a requirement? Because if you know what that is, your conversation becomes a hell of a lot easier. A word on terminology. We love our acronyms. Don't know if you've noticed. To be fair, so does finance. I don't know if you've looked at any sort of training material on finance, but they love their terminology as well. There's 2 things. I know everybody tells you, how many people have been told, don't use terminology, don't use acronyms, don't use specific terminology to your business or to your area of expertise? Has everyone been told that? Yeah. I'm going to say, not quite. So, if you work in Microsoft and you're talking to people who are very familiar with that terminology, use it. Why? Because I can say WMI, and the term WMI, or Windows Management Instrumentation, or whatever the acronym stands for now, I can get across a lot more information, because you don't just look at it and say, oh, it's a connector. You say, I know how that connector connects, and I know what sort of information it can get, and I know how I can use it. So you've got a lot of background knowledge that you're tapping into. Whereas if you don't use terminology at all, you can't tap into that, or you have to explain it in micro detail, which everybody loves, by the way. However, do not use it unless you know what it means completely, and they know what it means. And when I say they, I mean the people making the decision. Because if you don't both know what it means, you're just baffling them, or you're baffling yourself, or you're looking like an idiot because you're using terminology like sunk costs, and you think you know what it means, but you sort of only half understand it, so you're talking to them and they're going, what? That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, when you're using terminology, use it when both parties really understand it, because it can impart a lot more information than otherwise. Otherwise, leave it alone. So the next one, I can sometimes struggle with, because I may be a bit arrogant, have a bit of an ego. One of the really interesting things is, even when you're talking about something that's very IT related, let's say the antivirus we were talking about before, for example, if you stop, I've done my research, I know what I'm talking about, and then you say, who else cares about this? And in the case of an antivirus situation, you may want to go and speak to a security person. Maybe. How many security people in the room? No one. Good. Okay, so you may want to go and speak to a security person and get what they want out of it. They may be able to impart information. Coming back to that terminology, you may go to the finance people. There's nothing better than going to the person who's going to make the decision and going, can I buy you a coffee? Let's just go and have a chat. I'm thinking about doing this thing. I've been doing a bit of research, but I really want your input into it because it's important. Because if you can collaborate and work with the people who are going to make the decision, or with the people around you in different departments, other people that can actually get buy-in, you're going to be in a much better position and really understand what the business impact is going to be. Writing a business case. I like writing. It's something I do, but I get that it's not fun for a lot of people. However, and I'm not saying that you should always write a business case for every situation where you want to get some money. If you want $5 for a coffee downstairs, you just offer to talk at a Microsoft event. Yeah, you probably don't need a business case. But there's going to be times when really being able to articulate it in a way that they can take away and read at their own leisure and refer to and reference their own information is going to be beneficial. I've got an example of what I would use as a business case, as a basic business case. And to be fair, if you look at it, there's not a huge amount of information there. But I have a question. And believe me, the people that write these don't always give me the same answer, so there's no right answer. What do you think should go in an executive summary?
It should really serve as a certain document.
Absolutely, I agree. Anyone else know what else? You might...
Actual recommendation.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Waffle.
Waffle. Yeah. All of those three things are absolutely accurate. The idea is a lot of the information in your document is going to be detailed. It's going to be quite possibly very technical. But the people that are reading this document are not necessarily going to be technical people. So the executive summary is a story in and of itself. It talks about why you're doing it, what you did to gather the information and make the decision, and then it provides a recommendation at the bottom in the last paragraph as a conclusion. There's usually a good idea to put some cash in there as well, like how much money is this going to cost me? And if you're really smart, you put some images as well. Graphs are great, and I know that sounds a bit flippant, but if there's one thing I will say, you can look at a graph, whoever you are, and gain a lot more information out of a graph because there's comparisons. You can see how things track, you can see how they compare to each other. It can take something that seems very complicated and simplify it. So as much as executives love graphs, having graphs in there, having information laid out in a pictographic manner can really clearly articulate what you're trying to say. I then have a look at an analysis section.
How long is too long for an executive summary?
I try and keep it to a page. I would try not to go over a page unless you're asking for significant amounts of money. But to be honest, even then I probably wouldn't go too much further than that. The reason being, it has to be concise. If it's not concise, they're going to get bored before they get to the conclusion. And if it is more than a page, you put some information in there that should be further on in the document. I've heard people say some people don't bother reading the executive summary, they always go to the detail, and I've heard people say they only read the executive summary and they don't bother reading the detail. That's just different personality types. I was getting away. That's just different personality types. Those people that love detail will go straight for the detail, and those people that really just want to they trust you, they know that you've done what you need to do, and they just want the cliff notes, will go straight to the executive summary. But the analysis section, that's where you actually start to put in detail. You start to think about how you went through the process. What did you do? What tests did you do? What information did you look for as part of that? If you're really looking for a lot of money, or you are looking for getting that really high level of buy-in, use some of those tools that exist in the finance world. Things like Part B, cost benefit, SWOT, risk analysis, things like that. Those are, you can always look them up. SWOT is looking at what are the strengths and weaknesses of the different products and how they fit into that and where the business can use them going forward, and what are the threats to it. Things like cost benefit is obviously then breaking down for people how much it's going to cost versus how much you're going to make from it. If you're going to make money for it, put a cost benefit analysis in there, because if you can show that it's going to make money even though you have to spend money, finance will be eating out of your hand, or at least the people who care about you making money more. I then break it down into the pros and cons of each product. I have in the past had situations where I've said, this is the product I think we should go for based on what you've told me about your organisational goals. And in the end, they've picked product B. And the reason being, what they told me were their goals weren't necessarily what their ordering of their goals were. So it might be that I said, this one will fit your environment really well, it'll allow you to do that thing that you were planning on doing, but then they might say, oh, this one's cheaper and we don't really care enough about that to spend the extra money. So be prepared that if you are putting in multiple products, you need to accept that one of them may be chosen. Actually, that brings me to another point, which is if you don't want a product to be used, don't put it in. Because I guarantee you'll be really kicking yourself when they choose it. Don't put it in if you're not willing to live with it. Next steps, if there's anything else you need to be doing, how you need to go about actually implementing it, if there's resource costs, if you need a project manager, if you need new hardware, all of those sorts of things can be put in there. And then if you've got any documents that you used to make your decision, include them as appendixes. Why not? If you've done the work, they may as well see how much you've done. Yeah? Who has heard the saying, okay, let me ask the question. Do you think, just think about yourself in decision making, or your manager, or whoever you like, what do you think the balance is? Do you make emotional decisions or do you make rational decisions? Does it? Put up your hand if you think you make emotional decisions. Yeah? 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 Does anyone don't think they make emotional decisions? My decision making is always rational. Yeah? So the interesting thing is they've done lots of psychology or psychological testing. I don't know. They've done lots of white papers. They've done lots of research on this. Everybody's decisions are emotional. 80% of your decision-making process is based on your emotional reaction to something. And generally, do you know what the 20% rational choices are? They're rationalisation of your emotional decision. Not that it's not the right decision, but it is. Human beings are designed to use their emotions to gauge how they're going to move and what they're going to do. And it's not saying that it's wrong, it's saying use it. If you want something, use that. Now, I don't mean do it brutally. You know, don't go and use your EQ to, you know, psychoanalyze everyone in the office. I'm saying understand what people really care about. Your manager may say they care about the bottom line, but they may actually care about actually having this wonderful interface that their manager can see because they're looking at promotion, and it would be really nice if they could get that. Yeah? Who goes and buys a Ferrari because it's cost effective? I don't care how much money you've got, you don't buy a Ferrari because it makes sense. This is probably the most important point. Find out what they care about and find out how you can build that into what you're doing. And I know that sounds really like I'm a psychopath or something. I promise you I'm not. And I'm not saying to divorce yourself emotionally from it, because keep in mind, your decisions are emotional as well. So it's about trying to bring them along on the journey, talk to them about what they care about, and then feed them. Okay, yay, you've just been given $1 million to spend, and you can go and happily spend it and spend the next 2 years of your life happily immersed in a project that's going to win the day for you. Or you don't. I'm not saying this is going to solve your problems. If you follow all of my 8 approaches and 8 suggestions for getting people to agree with you, you've got a better chance. Absolutely, you've got a better chance of getting it over the line. But that doesn't mean that it will happen. If it doesn't happen, it's really important to not whine about it. to be frank. Don't whine about it. Don't sort of try and keep going. Don't keep going back and keep going back, going, no, but we need it. And even if you do need it a lot, you've done one of two things. You've either not hit the mark and you haven't quite worked out what the business needs, or you've hit the mark and there's something you're not aware of. Maybe there's a cash flow issue that you don't know about. Maybe the manager is planning on acquiring another business down the road that already has this and they don't want to spend more on it now. You don't know because no organisation tells their employees everything. I'm pretty sure CEOs don't know everything either. So if they've come back to you and they've gone, look, I can see you've done a hell of a lot of hard work here, I'm really impressed. However, we're not going to go forward with it this time. Accept honourable defeat and say, great, can you give me some feedback though? Can you tell me if there's something else that I should have included? Can you let me know if there's any other things that we should be thinking about in relation to this? Because I thought this was quite important, obviously. Most people will quite happily give you that information as long as it's not confidential or something along those lines. Now, in the talk I gave at Ignite, I actually said you could convince your partner to do this as well. And I still believe it's true. In that all of these things that we've discussed, all of these 9 points, can relate to home as well in exactly the same way. Because how many people get home and go, I'm going to use a really gender-specific example here because it's very hard not to. I want to go golf tomorrow, dear. And your partner may turn around and say, oh, but you know, I was hoping that we could go for a coffee and, you know, sit and chat, and we haven't spent any time together this week. That's my husband all the time. I want to be out on the golf course. Your immediate thing is, oh, it's been a hard week, I've been working really hard, I just want to relax. Well, that's great, but then if you step back into some of the points that we've been talking about, think about what they care about. Think about how you, what their bottom line is, and you may say, do you know what, I'm really lucky. I have a golf course around the corner from my house which has a great coffee shop. So you may then sit back and go, well, I know, dear, tomorrow morning, why don't we get up early and we'll wander down to the golf club, we'll have a sit and have a breakfast together and we'll sit and chat, and then we'll go out for a round of golf. I don't play golf, so I don't know the terminology, but you've solved both problems then. You get to play a round of golf, your wife or partner gets to sit and have coffee and breakfast and chat to you about what's happened to them this week. So you can use what we've talked about here in whatever context you want. Thank you. Is there any questions? Is there anyone that wants to give me an example of when they've done this?
Thank you for watching this Adelaide Microsoft IT Pro presentation. For more information on past or future events or to join the community, please visit the links below.